Oh, again, essay here. Anyone who's been paying attention probably is aware of what happened in Washington, D.C. about a day or so ago. And so far, the state authorities are still fishing bodies out of the Potomac. Or I think it was the thing they call it the Washington Waterway, I think it was called. But I know it's all part of the same, all tributaries that feed into the Potomac. But let's not get into the weeds over that. Well, anyway, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt over the cause of the crash. And so far, they haven't found the black box yet. But multiple people, people who work for the NTSB, the FAA, and even the U.S. military, all said that that this accident probably could have been avoided. Why? Well, because they believe that too many things went wrong all at once. For example, there was not enough air traffic controllers watching the airspace where the crash happened. And then, of course, there was a question about who was flying the helicopter, because they said there was two pilots on board. One had 1,500 hours of flight training, while the other one only had 1/3 that number. And then, of course, there's the issue of why didn't the system that most airliners have nowadays that tells them if another airplane gets too close to them didn't operate. And believe me, I remember when they first invented that system. Supposedly, if you're in a commercial airliner and another airplane is getting too close to you, that system's supposed to activate in the cockpit to let you know, hey, there's someone like coming up on your 6 or coming up on your 9 or on your 12, and about to run into you. But like I said, they haven't found the black box yet, so we don't know. And then, of course, there's the issue of DEI. Now, of course, there's been a lot of, let's just say this, a lot of recriminations about that. That's been going on quite a while, long before this air crash. Now, there's a big issue about did DEI, or I should say, the lack of competency caused this crash? Well, unfortunately, we just don't know yet. Like I said, they're still fishing bodies out of the damn waterway. Well, anyway, I'm going to show you a simple video from Paul Joseph Watson. And he's going to throw his 2 cents in on the subject. Okay? Are you ready? Here we go.
Trump blamed the obsession with diversity hires for making air travel less safe.
The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities.
And everyone lost their minds.
And yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed. And you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control.
Of course, CNN journo Karen went there.
Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
I think that's not a very smart question. I'm surprised coming from you.
So satisfying to see Miss Main Character Syndrome get roasted by the big man yet again.
That is amazing.
Are you saying race or gender played a role in this tragedy?
I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
But wait, I mean, He's right, isn't he? Here it is on the FAA's website. If you prioritise race and protected characteristics, including mental disabilities, over skill and competency, you're gonna get less skill and competency. Trump's disaster playbook. Blame Democrats and politicise tragedy. How is it politicising tragedy if politics is making these tragedies more likely? It's a fact that the FAA deliberately turned away qualified ATCs because they were shock horror white men, including Andrew Brigida, who scored 100% on his training exam, but was rejected as an air traffic controller because he failed the biographical test of not being diverse.
So you take the technical test, you get 100%. Then you take the biographical test. How do you do on that?
So I ended up failing. Andrew was a victim of bigotry.
I mean, how is this legal?
It's not.
He was just one of 2,500 aspiring air traffic controllers who say they were harmed by the FAA's racially discriminatory hiring policies. Yeah, if I was on that plane, I know who I'd prefer. Pilot is white, always a relief. Welcome on board Diversity Airlines.
I'm Brad Mims, Deputy Administrator at the Federal Aviation Administration. We need a diverse group of air traffic controllers. We need a diverse air traffic workforce.
Is air travel in the US becoming less safe? 2023 saw the highest number of serious runway incidents in almost a decade. And in the same year, there were 503 significant air traffic control lapses, 65% more than in the prior year.
Another close call as a FedEx 767 comes within 100 feet of a Southwest Airlines flight in Austin.
In San Diego.
At JFK Airport in New York.
They call them near misses.
Southwest aboard.
They're near collisions.
But it's nothing to do with diversity, they say. It's exhaustion. Wait, but surely performing under pressure should be a key skill for an air traffic controller. But they stopped hiring them primarily based on skill, and that's the point. Under Obama, the FAA replaced a skills-based test with a biographical questionnaire to attract more diverse applicants. They blame lack of staffing for all these mistakes, while simultaneously blocking thousands of new potential FAA staff because they weren't diverse enough.
The Obama administration put in place this new set of hiring standards for air traffic controllers.
The FAA decided that it was producing too many white men to become air traffic controllers. They decided to change the hiring process and introduce a new first step, which was called the biographical questionnaire. And it was designed to alter the racial makeup of the potential hiring pool.
The media really rounded on Trump for those DEI comments. Some are accusing Trump of exploiting the tragedy to his advantage, while others are outright.
The lack of staffing is directly attributable to the Obama administration terminating the lists of eligible, well-trained air traffic control statements in 36 universities across the country in 2013 because they were too white.
Is there any indication that diversity hires aren't up to the job? I mean, the guy Biden hired as FAA Chief of Staff in 2023, well, let's just say he was in no danger of being overqualified for the role.
Mr. Washington, can you quickly tell me what airspace requires an ADS-B transponder?
Not sure I can answer that question right now.
That's okay. We'll just keep going. So that's a pretty important part. So what are the 6 types of special use airspace that protect this national security that appear on FAA charts?
Sorry, Senator, I cannot answer that question.
Okay, so what are the operational limitations of a pilot flying under basic med?
Senator, I'm not a pilot, so...
So can you tell me what causes an aircraft to spin or to stall?
Again, Senator, I'm not a pilot.
Okay, let's keep going.
Wow, really fills you with confidence. The FAA is also keeping its diversity hires in a job, even if they make potentially catastrophic mistakes.
In the old days, before 2010, the immunity program, if an air traffic controller got 2 airplanes too close, too many times, they would be decertified and retrained. Now, they're not. All they have to do within 48 hours of being noticed or being investigated for a potential separation error, they're called operational errors in the FAA, the controller just simply has to avail themselves of this program that gives them immunity. And when I say immunity, I mean immunity. The FAA cannot retrain these people.
But DEI isn't just about putting unqualified people into positions of power. It has the effect of making the jobs of the people who are already there on merit much harder. Productive workers have to clean up the messes, walk on eggshells, avoid offending the precious person, lest HR hags summon you in. DEI ruins organisations, civilian and military. The point is not that DEI causes a particular crash or disaster, but that any institution which adopts DEI is by definition lowering standards and sacrificing merit on the altar of ideology.
We will have the best and brightest in every position possible. The era of DEI is gone.
Clearer video that just got released of the crash really makes you wonder how the Black Hawk pilot didn't see the massive airliner.
These videos obtained exclusively by CNN show previously unseen angles of the collision between an American Airlines flight and a US Army Black Hawk helicopter. In the first video, the Black Hawk can be seen flying at speed over the Potomac from the left side of the screen. The American Airlines plane can be seen flying towards the airport before the two collide, causing a mid-air explosion and fall into the river. In the second video, you can see the Army helicopter and American Airlines plane travel toward each other. After the collision and subsequent explosion, the airliner can be seen spinning into the water, and the Black Hawk is also seen falling into the water.
Another flight aborted landing because of a military helicopter in its path. Just 24 hours before the crash, AA4514 can be seen on radar having to go around and make a second attempt. There should have been 4 people, not 3, on board the Black Hawk chopper. Now we learn that there was only one person managing air traffic control for both planes and helicopters, which is supposed to be a 2-person job, and that one of the controllers clocked off early before the crash. They were supposed to have 30 air traffic controllers in the tower, but only had 19. Just a thought, and I know it's pretty controversial, but maybe they should have just hired more white men.
Okay, you saw that. Now, of course, some of you who have no use for DEI would probably say Watson is spot on. But the fact that we haven't found the black box still leaves a lot of unanswered questions. Now, of course, as you saw in Watson's video, the news media, being dishonest as usual, they were basically obfuscating the obvious and trying to make the story less about the plane crash than Trump's reaction to it. Now, let's not even pretend for one iota that Trump is not known for his elegant speaking abilities. No, the guy is no William Jennings Bryan, okay? And he's definitely no Sir Laurence Olivier, okay? Nope. He's just a dude who basically is rough around the edges, to say the least. And he doesn't like to mince words. He basically says what he thinks, and that's the alpha and omega. And of course, as you saw in Watson's video, a lot of these damn people were trying to basically say, oh, the equivalent of, oh, you can't say that. And I'm thinking, he's president of the United States, he can say what he damn well please. Does that make him right? We don't know yet. We don't have the answers. But hopefully we will get the answers pretty soon. But let's just presume that some malfunction occurred inside the airliner and just the pilots didn't know what danger they were in. I mean, that can happen. In other words, equipment fails all the time in airplanes. I can tell you a famous story that happened in Korea about 25 years ago, when an F-16 pilot flew into the ground because his altimeter, in fact, both altimeters malfunctioned. His primary and his backup altimeter malfunctioned when he was flying in a cloud bank. And he didn't know if he was flying right side up or upside down, and therefore he made a judgment call and ended up flying right into the ground. Now, in the case of this airliner, if their proximity warning system malfunctioned, they probably didn't know what danger they were in. Now, of course, since we don't have the black box, we don't know that yet. But from what we can tell from the information we have, and that you saw part of it in Watson's video, yeah, it seemed like the airplane seemed to have been flying normally, but the helicopter was like all over the place. Now, some of you say, well, don't helicopters have black boxes? Not necessarily. But since it was a military helicopter, a Black Hawk, it might. But we'll see. But yeah, there's just so many unanswered questions about this air crash. A lot of unanswered questions. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that Trump is spot on. That we had inexperienced people either in the helicopter or in the control tower, or both. Yeah, in both. And of course, you saw in Watson's video, this diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, this has been going on for quite a while, ever since Obama. And as you saw, when Biden tried to push through some guy to take over the FAA, the guy clearly was, his want to, couldn't keep up with his can do. In other words, the guy was clearly incompetent. And of course, what Watson did mention was that fella actually withdrew his nomination because even he clearly knew that he wasn't up to the job. But still, the fact that we have so many unanswered questions, I think we should just wait for the facts. But as I said, just for the sake of argument, let's just say that Trump is right. That DEI got those people killed. So what do we do about it? Well, apparently, if you're paying attention to Watson's video, he is doing something about it. He's getting rid of this DEI out of our various institutions, which is a good thing. Because you should never give a person a job, even if it's mopping the floor, the guy is ignorant and doesn't know what he's doing. And the fact that these people who've been pushing DEI for years wants to put people who are clearly incompetent, people who do not have the skill set, into some of the most critical and important jobs in this country, indeed in the world, is dangerous to other people. And indeed, as you saw in Watson's video, these people who are pushing DEI, particularly under the Obama, they were basically doing things that's totally against the Civil Rights Act, which is against the law. You can't be hiring people based on race. And yet these people, in order to push through their diversity and inclusion initiatives, were deliberately getting rid of people who were indeed competent. As you saw in Watson's video, people who actually were able to pass the test with flying colors. And yet they weren't hired because they weren't the right skin color. And that's wrong. That's completely wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're mopping a broom or you're flying a 747. You shouldn't be hiring people based on race. You should be hiring people based on skill. Now, of course, does that mean that people who do have the skill set makes mistakes? Of course they do. It happens all the time. I mean, look what happened to the fellow who was captain of the Titanic. According to the history books, he was the most experienced sailing man who worked for the old White Star shipping line. And yet, despite having, I think he had like 40 years experience sailing boats, he still ended up sailing the damn Titanic into that damn iceberg and sunk it and killed all those people. However, when it comes to DEI, let's just say this. You're guaranteed to end up running that ship into the proverbial iceberg. especially if you hire someone who's never sailed a big ocean liner in their life, metaphorically speaking. And the fact that these people keep doing it, and I think you saw Watson's video, some of these people inside the federal government right now are trying to hide the fact that they were hired to push these initiatives, and there are people in these federal agencies who are trying to hide these people instead of them being dismissed. Even though their initiative has been defunded, these people are still trying to stick around. Why? Because they somehow feel like they're doing God's work, metaphorically speaking. And they're not going to let Trump or anybody else run them out of there. And if they have to sit there and hide in the shadows and wait Trump out, they'll do it. But I don't think they're going to succeed. Because, as my mom told me a long time ago, it was an old Southern joke. It's one thing when people presume you're a fool. It's another thing when you open your mouth and prove to everyone that you are. And that's the one thing that usually people tend to find out about these DEI people, is that for the most part, you can't tell by looking at them when they open their mouths and they show what an ignoramus they are. Then you realize, okay, take the keys from this knucklehead. He doesn't know what he's doing running this big machine. Yeah, precisely. Now, of course, there is occasions when people are placed in a set of circumstances, and they have basically not because of any kind of initiative, but because they're placed in a situation in which nobody else is there to stand up and basically take control of the situation. Now, of course, some of you saying, "Oh, you mean emergency situation?" And yeah, because how many times you heard stories where a woman is having a baby and she's nowhere near a hospital, nowhere near a doctor, and therefore a person who's never given birth a baby in their life is forced to do it. Yeah, that happens sometimes. People who have no experience, don't know what the hell they're doing, are stuck into a situation that they basically have to step up to the plate and say, okay, I'm going to deliver this kid, and God help me if I don't end up killing the kid trying to pull it out of the mother. And I'm thinking, okay, in those situations, I guess you can't help but avoid having someone who is not experienced basically taking the wheel because there's no one else there to do it. Indeed, my father, way back when he was with the U.S. Army Air Force, this was right after World War II ended, he told me a story about how that happened to him. Now, even though he was a member of the U.S. Army Air Force, he didn't know how to fly airplanes. Nope. Didn't know a thing. And therefore, he was an adjutant to a colonel who could fly airplanes. And one day, they were flying from point A to point B, this was out in the Pacific, in a B-24 Liberator, a big plane, big old 4-engine bomber. And according to my father, the colonel told my father to take the wheel of the airplane. And according to my father, like I said, he don't know nothing about flying airplanes, but the colonel told him, take the wheel of the airplane, hold it straight and level, and I'll be right back. And the colonel left my father alone in the cockpit of that airplane. And my father said that was the scariest thing that ever happened to us. Like I said, my father didn't know how to fly an airplane, and yet he's sitting there holding the wheel to a big old 4-engine hunk of metal flying at about 20,000 feet in the sky. And then the colonel came back and took control of the airplane. My father told me that after that incident, he said he never wanted to be in a situation like that again. And you know what? He's lucky he never had to be in that situation again. Now, as far as what's happened with this plane crash, hopefully we'll find out the facts. And if DEI was the cause of the plane crash, well, hopefully we'll get that situation sorted out one way or the other. Well, that's all I got to say about what happened out there in Washington, D.C., with all those people getting killed. That's my opinion.